In this video, we'll be discussing the fascinating story of Sir Eric Gairy, the former Prime Minister of Grenada, in which he claims to have encountered something quite literally out of this world. It's said that UFO sightings have long been a fairly common occurrence in the skies over Grenada. What the former Prime Minister encountered goes so far beyond a simple sighting of strange lights, it makes the average UFO sighting seem fairly mundane by comparison. He described finding the wreckage of a crashed UFO late one night on a beach along the coast of Grenada. But that wasn't all. Amidst the mangled debris that washed ashore was the body of an extremely tall, six-fingered humanoid who had apparently died in the crash. I'm Drew from Mad Cat Mysteries. Join us as we delve into the peculiar case of Sir Eric Gairy and the six-fingered humanoid. Let's begin. Born February 18, 1922, Sir Eric Gairy would go on to live a life marked by many accomplishments as well as controversy. After founding the Grenada United Labour Party, he served as the Prime Minister of Grenada from 1974 to 1979. In 1977, he was knighted by Queen Elizabeth II. He also received two honorary doctorates, one in political science and one in law. In addition to his interests in politics and law, he had a lifelong fascination with the UFO phenomenon. This fascination was fostered by several UFO sightings he claims to have had over the course of his life. But his encounter with the dead humanoid was by far the most influential and unusual UFO-related encounter he had. Unfortunately, I couldn't find exactly when this encounter was said to have taken place, but it was sometime prior to his speech at the United Nations General Assembly on Thursday, October 12, 1978. We'll discuss that General Assembly meeting later in the video, but let's return to the night in question. He spent the majority of that evening at one of his favorite nightclubs, the Evening Palace. A fisherman came in with a story of having seen something very strange on the beach. The fisherman had no trouble persuading Sir Eric to follow him back to the nearby beach, where he could witness the bizarre spectacle for himself. Within minutes, Sir Eric assembled a group of several individuals he trusted, including a small military unit and a photographer. The group promptly headed out to investigate the fisherman's bizarre story for themselves. It was just before dawn at this point, and the group had just arrived at the scene. There were two other fishermen there, standing guard over a tarp with something clearly under it. The fisherman pulled the tarp back to reveal the body of a giant, human-like being. It was around 7.5 to 8 feet tall, with white skin and long, white, braided hair. The facial features were described as closely resembling that of an adult human male, somewhere in his early 30s. The fisherman then directed the group's attention to the creature's hands, which had 6 digits each. This by itself does not rule out the possibility of it having been human. There's an extremely rare condition known as polydactyly, in which people are born with more than 5 digits on their hands and feet. There are also unrelated but equally rare conditions that could potentially account for its size and hair color respectively. Even so, it doesn't seem very likely that one human being would suffer from all of these unrelated rare conditions simultaneously. On a side note, the body shares two interesting features in common with descriptions of the Nephilim in the Old Testament. These creatures were often described as being giants. In addition to their enormous stature, some of the Nephilim were alleged to have 6 digits per hand and foot. However, this is where the similarities seem to end. The Nephilim were most commonly described as having red hair, not white. Furthermore, I'm unaware of any Nephilim described as having unusually white skin. On the other hand, dulling or paling of skin tone is commonly observed shortly after someone passes away. In any event, the men on the scene were leaning toward another possible explanation, suspecting that what they were looking at was the body of an extraterrestrial. The entity was clothed in equally peculiar attire, Described as a dark blue, skin-tight, one-piece suit with footwear attached, it was reminiscent of a scuba suit minus the flippers. When pulled, the suit's material could be stretched out about 2 feet away from the body. When released, the material slowly shrank back to being skin-tight. As it returned to its original position, the material emitted a low-pitched humming sound. As the rising sun began to illuminate the area, it became apparent that the entire beach was littered with metallic debris. There were also multiple containers of various sizes bobbing in the surf and rolling ashore. The majority of the containers were still intact, although a few had been broken, releasing whatever content had been inside. Approximately 8 of the retrieved containers have remained fully intact. With a great deal of effort, the men were able to open only 2 of the 8 containers while at the site. Inside, they found packets of sand and coral from the seabed, as well as various specimens of fish and aquatic flora. After gathering all the debris they could find, they loaded the wreckage into one truck and the giant body into another truck. Both trucks hauled off to deliver their exotic cargo to an undisclosed location. Once back at the barracks, all military personnel involved in the retrieval were, rather predictably, ordered to keep quiet about what they had seen. During an interview, the Prime Minister was asked several questions pertaining to the body's whereabouts, if it had been preserved, and if any autopsy had been performed. Seemingly reluctant to divulge specific details, he stated simply that it had been taken to the only medical school he trusted to do a proper autopsy. Although the body's current whereabouts were not explicitly revealed, the interviewer recalls getting the distinct impression that the body was still being kept at the unnamed medical school. After doing a little bit of digging of my own, I learned that Sir Eric had close ties to St. George University in Grenada. The university was founded in 1976 during his time in office. Furthermore, St. George University is best known for its highly respected School of Medicine. Could this have been where the body was taken? If so, is the body still being kept there? Not surprisingly, I didn't find any conclusive evidence of their medical school ever having been in possession of an alien body, but then again, absence of evidence does not necessarily mean evidence of absence. It's a highly speculative possibility, but if we are to believe his story, then St. George University would seem to be a pretty good place to begin looking for such supporting evidence. When asked about the retrieved containers, Sir Eric explained that he had strictly prohibited the opening of any remaining unopened containers. The reason behind this order remains unclear, and Sir Eric gave no indication of ever having found out what was in those containers. The next question posed to the Prime Minister was, who else knows about this event? To this he replied that he had only told a small handful of people whom he trusted. When asked what he intended to do with this information in the future, he replied simply that he was still formulating his plans. Having been so impacted by his encounter with the unknown, he was adamant that world leaders take the topic of UFOs and extraterrestrials more seriously. This brings us back to his speech at the United Nations General Assembly on October 12, 1978. While his speech covered a broad range of topics and current events, he introduced a UN resolution to study UFOs and extraterrestrial life. As a prime sponsor of this resolution, he was pleased to see his fellow world leaders taking such a taboo proposal seriously. After careful consideration, the UN General Assembly adopted his resolution to study UFOs shortly thereafter on December 18, 1978. A few months later, in March of 1979, Sir Eric was scheduled to meet with UN Secretary General Kurt Waldheim. The purpose of this meeting was to further discuss matters relating to his recently adopted UFO resolution. This is where the story takes an unexpected twist. Just before the meeting was to take place, Sir Eric was informed that his government had been overthrown by a Marxist organization known as the New Jewel Movement, or NJM. The NJM was led by a young attorney named Maurice Bishop. The coup was planned and successfully executed by Bishop, along with a mere 46 of his followers. The timing of the coup no doubt raised many suspicious eyebrows, and there's certainly no shortage of conspiracy theories tied to UFO disclosure. Was there truly a broader plot to derail the former Prime Minister's UFO resolution, or was the timing of the coup purely coincidental? While the timing of the coup likely had more to do with mounting geopolitical tension than derailing Sir Eric's UFO resolution, I've covered numerous examples of far worse things happening to advocates who have been a bit too outspoken in the UFO disclosure movement. As is so often the case with this sort of thing, we have a bounty of questions for which the answer remains frustratingly elusive. At this point, it's unlikely that we'll ever know with any degree of certainty one way or the other. Either way, the coup prevented Sir Eric from meeting with Secretary General Waldheim, and having been deposed as Prime Minister, Sir Eric no longer held claim to his seat at the United Nations. Having also lost his position as Prime Minister of Grenada, he would spend the next few years living in exile in the United States. Maurice Bishop's reign as Prime Minister was fittingly cut short when he was overthrown in a second coup on October 16, 1983. Unlike his predecessor, Bishop never had the opportunity to continue his life by taking asylum in another country. 3 days later, on October 19, 1983, Maurice Bishop was executed in Grenada by a firing squad. With Bishop removed, it was no longer necessary for Sir Eric to continue living in exile. Thus, Sir Eric would return to his homeland of Grenada in 1984, where he would spend the rest of his life. Though back in his homeland, his political career would never be recovered. Sir Eric's last years were marked by all kinds of hardships. As his health declined, he suffered a stroke, eventual blindness, and mental incapacitation. On August 23, 1997, Sir Eric Gairy passed away at the age of 75. Once again, we seem to be left with far more questions than answers. What was the true nature and origin of what washed ashore that fateful night? Was an autopsy performed, and if so, what were the findings? Was the body preserved? Whatever became of the wreckage, and where is it being kept today? Did Sir Eric tell anyone more than what he disclosed in the interview? Will anyone ever come forward with new information about the case? And if so, when will they come forward? At this point in time, such questions remain unanswerable. We are left to merely speculate and hope that maybe one day we'll find out. Special thanks to YouTube user Roku, aka Val, who Val not only suggested this topic, but she did 3 of the illustrations that I used in this video, and I'm going to put those 3 illustrations on screen right now. I cannot believe how talented my subscribers are. I count it as a privilege to be able to showcase y'all's work and your talent. In addition to Val, I would also like to give a special thanks to Richard Interplane, who was the composer of the piece Poles Apart, which I played in this video, and what the heck, I'll play a clip of it right now. That's Poles Apart. Thank you so much, Richard. I absolutely love showcasing the talent of subscribers. So if you're out there and you would like to do some illustrations or some compositions, hit me up, because I would love to use more of my subscribers' work. Moving on to some announcements. So I heard from the folks from Discovery Go and Travel Channel that my episode where they're using my Brown Mountain footage on Paranormal Caught on Camera, I still don't have an exact date, but they told me that it will air sometime toward the beginning of 2022, so be on the lookout for that. The show again is Paranormal Caught on Camera, and it will be Season 5, Episode 8. Next, I am really proud of this and excited about it. Hopefully the quality of the audio right now is a little bit better. I just ordered and received this handy dandy lavalier mic. I had a really good day a few days ago doing some day trades and had a killer day. So I figured, you know, it's past time that I invested in some better audio equipment. That finally came in. So henceforth, the audio quality of my videos should be improving, and I think it's starting to drizzle a little bit, so I need to wrap this up. Well, folks, that's all I have for this video. I hope everyone is doing really well, and let's go, Brandon. Hey everyone, Drew here from Mad Cat Mysteries, and I hope you enjoyed the video you just watched. If you did, you can click on the subscribe button below. I'd appreciate it. Thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you next time.